Today, we're going to talk real strategies, no fluff, on what to do seriously to boost your tenants' happiness and keep them sticking around longer. You've got to do three things to really improve retention within your multifamily real estate tenant experience. And we're going to talk about those on the show today. Hello. If you don't know, welcome back to another episode of Renovation Nation, the show brought to you by Red Maples, your go-to source for institutional style property management of small multifamily rentals. I'm your host, Nathan Bush. In each show, I share with you real life experience from our real estate experience and journey. We invite everybody on this show, man. If you're an industry expert, innovator, influencer, or if you just want to explore some of the challenges facing small multifamily real estate investing, this show is for you. We've designed this show to answer some questions about things that you've been asking, things like how to research the market, setting up effective management systems, and maximizing your returns. If you want more of these types of resources regularly, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Head over to www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe. That's www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe. And that will get you on my email list to be notified of future shows and episodes. Otherwise, you can check out some of the links in the descriptions, whether they're above or below, depending on which platform you're watching. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button right now. That will help you better be able to stay up to date with all of the shows and information that we have around investing in small multifamily rentals. All right, if you guys have some questions today, if you have anything that you'd like to ask or would like to interact during the show, this is a live show, so I'm happy to answer and participate in anything. All you got to do is throw those questions in the chat, and we will make sure that you get your answers, whether on the show or if I have to do it afterwards, I will make sure I spend time answering all those questions. All right, so before I go too far into the show today, I do need to make sure I stop and thank my sponsor, Red Maples, that puts this show together and makes this possible. You can go to www.red-maples.com/assessment. There you'll find a fancy video of me talking all about how we can make your properties more profitable, more proficient, and more professional. So I encourage you to go over to red-maples.com/assessment, check that video out, and get an assessment done of your rental real estate portfolio. I know that oftentimes real estate investors are trying to figure out what is the best next move so that I can continue to scale my operation. Is my management company even effectively managing my portfolio? Am I over leveraged? Am I under leveraged? Do I need to refinance my portfolio? Do I need to sell things right now? Is this running as efficiently as it possibly could be? Head over to www.red-maples.com/assessment, and let's get that assessment started, and let's start talking and having that conversation. Specifically, if you have a portfolio, whether those are single family homes or small multifamily. All right, guys. The movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. You guys know I love like some pop culture references to help kind of get your minds wrapped around in understanding what is going on in small multifamily real estate. I absolutely love this movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know if you've seen this, but Will Smith, the actor, says to his child in an emotional moment, "Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me, all right? You dream. You got to protect it. You can't do something. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. If you want something, go get it, period." I love that quote from Will Smith, and it encapsulates the spirit of determination and the importance of pursuing one's goals and dreams despite the challenges of the naysayers. I know that this quote kind of aligns well today with this theme in this live cast because it's emphasizing the power of persistence and vision in enhancing your tenants' experience and retention in property management. Look, there's two sides to happiness. There's the happiness side of the investor, and there's the happiness side of the tenant. Today, we're going to talk about how do we get to that happiness side of the tenant, but I haven't forgot about your happiness in mind as the investor. Now, I want to take a second, too, and say thank you, Travis Durbin, from tuning in online. I see that you're here and participating in part of the show today. Travis, if you have any questions about anything that we're talking about, feel free to throw those into the show notes. I appreciate you guys, all of you that participate and hang out and watch the show and listen. So, all right, let's take the first point today. I'd like to bring up this concept of effective communication and responsiveness. look, if you're going to be successful in retaining tenants and enhancing the tenant's experience, there is a part of your responsibility in improving your communication responsiveness. And here's why. I pulled this right off of urban.org. You can see the link there in the webs, but this is where the reference is. It says, of those who felt pressure to move, 56% cited increases in rent as the cause. Another 30% of renters attributed feelings of pressure to move to their landlord not making repairs. To me, this concept all stems around the concept and why tenants would be moving. I mean, that's almost 80% of residents moving, 86% to be exact. 86% of residents moving in this most recent study over poor communication and lack of responsiveness to their inquiries, to their communication. Why are you, the landlord, not responding to your tenants? Why are you not having conversations with them? Why can they not get a hold of you? Is it because you're going to work all day and the only time you have to communicate with your tenants is after hours? You can't be available during normal business hours in order to be able to have a conversation about something that's going on? You can't get over to the property until after 6 p.m. In order to be able to figure out what's going on with the repair that needs to be done. And then on the flip side of all of that, maybe the tenant isn't available after 6 p.m. And so you're playing this chicken and egg thing, never able to actually get the repair taken care of for the resident. Or maybe you're the type of landlord that's out there that, you can't have civil communication with your tenants. I did a whole show previously about what really frustrates the tenants and how vandalism happens and how expensive damages happen within your rental real estate units. Effective communication and responsiveness are the critical factors. They are the thing that has the impact on whether the tenant wants to stay. Well, but if effective communication and responsiveness are the thing to have the tenant, to have an impact on the tenant, then where is it most important that you have this effective communication and responsiveness if you're going to maximize this whole process? Let's say that right now you're not going to hire out a management company. You're going to try to figure this out yourself. Okay, there's 3 critical spots that it's most important to have these conversations and be responsive. Number 1, the onboarding experience. If you don't have an effective onboarding experience, you're missing out on important critical communication that the tenants have to have with you as the real estate investor or the landlord who's going to be renting their property to them. They need to understand move-in dates, and they need to understand when they can actually buy that box, rent that box truck to get their moving to happen, or hire their movers to get people moved in for them. And so they're trying to coordinate all of this stuff. And if you don't have a great and excellent onboarding experience, your tenants get frustrated before they ever enter the property. If you don't have an excellent onboarding experience, the expectations are not properly set for the resident, and they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be mad. They're going to be upset. The next place that you need to have this effective communication responsiveness is in maintenance and work orders. If a tenant needs to get a hold of you to submit a work order, what do they have to do? What's your policy? What's your process? And what's your procedure? Do your tenants know and understand that? I'm going to tell you right now, at Red Maples, one of the benefits that we have as a management organization, number 1, is people who are able to answer the phone or respond to the voicemail message if for whatever reason there was multiple people on a call. The second thing that we have is a tenant portal where they can log in and put their work orders in online along with photos and communicate back and forth via the texting platform. And so our tenants are able to have communication with our staff all day, every day, for whatever questions that they have. You have to be available to be able to take that work order for when it's important. Nobody, busted pipe, when it's cold outside, the heat not working, these types of things cannot sit, or the tenant gets frustrated immediately in the moment. I mean, think about yourself. If your heat went out, what would you do? Would you take off work? Would you be spending all day trying to get a hold of contractors, trying to fix the heat just in your own home? Yet it's going to take you all the way until the evening time or until the next day in order to be able to even respond to the tenant about these maintenance work orders that are emergency issues. You got to put yourself in the tenant's shoe. You have to see this from the tenant's perspective. There has to be a professional approach to this maintenance and work order so that it can be responsive and have good communication around it. The next place that you need to have good communication and responsiveness around is this whole whole process of collections and past due rent. Now, again, I've done a whole nother video series on collecting rent with love, and it shows you the Red Maples collections, policies, and procedures and process. You can go back and watch that previous YouTube video. But for today's purpose, it's so important that you're communicative and you respond around collections. If a tenant's rent becomes past due, it's important that they know that it's past due. If a tenant's going to have an eviction filed, it's important that you communicate with them that you're going to be filing the eviction. If a tenant is going to be past due and they have a small late fee balance outstanding, they need to know about it before they pay their next month's rent. These things are imperative in the communication process. These are easy places that if you put some professionalism to, you put some thought process into your process, your policy and procedure on how you're going to approach this, these are great places where your tenants are just going to have an even better understanding and approach to the relationship with you and want to stay longer inside of your units. So we've talked about communication and responsiveness now till I'm about blue in the face. I mean, we've been going on, and you're probably getting a little bit bored of the conversation about communication responsiveness. But that's not the only thing that you have to understand in order to be able to retain tenants. See, because communication responsiveness only matters if you have a tenant and it's not a renter's market. If it becomes a renter's market, I pulled this right off the balancemoney.com. You can see that many renters relocate when the market becomes what's known as a renter's market. So you have to understand your local market. By understanding your local market, look, you're going to be able to do things ahead of time, knowing what's going on in the local market so that your tenants don't want to move. Is it time to make that new upgrade or put new amenities into place? I'll tell you this previous story. I had a tenant that was living in one of my rental units. And this particular tenant didn't need a new dishwasher, but the dishwasher in the unit was about 7 years old. And so I went ahead, called the tenant, took proactive stance and replaced the dishwasher with a high efficiency, new up-to-date dishwasher. It wasn't a major change or a major improvement, but could you imagine, here you are, you're a tenant, and your landlord reaches out to you proactively before the dishwasher breaks and puts in a brand new dishwasher that's up to date, kind of state of the art, a little bit more high end. You're going to be ecstatic. You're going to understand that that landlord, that property manager, that person cares about you is the resident. You taking a proactive stance to understanding what's going on in the market, what's the newest technologies, what's most up to date, this is going to significantly help you retain tenants even longer, especially if you can keep those units up to date with the tenant in there. Now, there's two things you can do in order for you to be able to understand your local market. So the two things that I highly encourage every landlord, investor, and property manager to do if you're trying to improve this tenant experience overall. The first one is tour several like properties. What do I mean? I mean, actually schedule appointments to go visit other properties that are for rent. See the condition of those properties. See how the people are responsive on the phone. See what the onboarding experience may feel like, look like. And are you keeping up with the current experience? Are you delivering something that's up to date in current market? Or is your product something that's behind the times? The second thing that I would tell you to do is, if you want to understand your local market, is go to networking events and speak with other investors. Why? Because other investors will give you tips, ideas, encouragement to what's going on in the local market. So even if you're an out-of-town investor, you're an out-of-town real estate investor, I've known a number of people that have flown into St. Louis from other states, whether that be Tennessee, California, New York. They flew into St. Louis to attend some of the local networking events that we go to. I say we go to Tours and Pours together. Some of you attend that with me. Some of us go to the St. Charles County Real Estate Investors Association that meets at the Walnut Grill on the first Wednesday of every month. Some of you will be attending a happy hour with me next week. That's a contractor's happy hour. Wherever it is, whatever networking events are going on locally, even if you're from out of state, I highly encourage you to go to some of the local meetup groups, the local networking investor groups, and find out what that property looks like. Go tour your property, tour some other properties while you're in the area. That will give you a competitive advantage to understand what's going on in the local market if you don't have an excellent property manager at the current time. All right. So we've talked about responsiveness and communication, and we've talked a little bit now about understanding the local market. These things are ways that we're going to be able to keep tenants in our property longer. Now, the last thing that you can do, it's called the stickiness factor. The stickiness factor. What do you do to make your properties more sticky? And the answer to that is found in this LinkedIn article. And it's basically, what are some ways to build strong tenant community? This was an AI article that was produced on LinkedIn, and a number of different property managers went ahead and responded. And they gave basically 5 things you can do to create this sense of community within your property. The first thing is communicate regularly and effectively. Well, we talked about communication responsiveness. The second thing was provide amenities and service. What are the amenities that you're providing within your property? What makes your property unique and different and stand out? How do tenants know that your property is the property that they want to be in long term when the market starts to shift? Do you keep your amenities up to date? Don't just think about the building and the structure in and of itself. So many landlords and investors only think about the experience from the building standpoint. What are those thought processes that you can have from the tenant standpoint? You know, some of the amenities that we've been talking about on this show here recently was, we're talking about upgrading to tech. If you can add a smart unit or put things into the property that make it a smart unit and smart functioning, those are definitely some things that you can do to upgrade that tenant amenity experience, especially if you have a limited amenity space. I've demonstrated or shared with you the shoe wall in one of the apartment communities that we toured. I shared with you and demonstrated the spa experience, or the bars or the coffee bars that have been installed in some of these places to create the community experience. Even the spaces, some of the builders are now starting to design this community living experience in the upper end apartment communities so that there's better amenities in places where tenants can connect. But you got to have the thought process from the tenant's experience. The next thing is organizing events and activities. Depending on how large your apartment community is, this may make sense. Or depending on how large your rental portfolio is, this may make sense. If you just have one rental, one unit, it's a single family off in a specific place, your tenants might opt to leave and go find an apartment community where they can be part of a community that's doing cool things, especially if they're a person that appreciates connection. But if you have multiple units or a couple of units in a specific area, because, if you're farming a specific area in St. Louis and you're trying to buy more and more property in that specific area, maybe notifying your tenants of some of the upcoming current events might just be the one thing that keeps them in your unit long term, because you let those tenants know of community activities that are going on. The next thing that you can sincerely do if you want to improve the tenant experience and make sure that you're building that sense of community is ask them. You can solicit feedback. So whether that's done through surveys or phone calls or just asking them when you're at the property next time, depending on who you are and the type of portfolio that you run, but getting feedback from your tenants about what's going on and how to build that sense of connection. Those are just questions you can simply ask the tenant. And then the last thing that this thing talked about, as far as this article talked about, as far as building a sense of community, was recognizing and rewarding loyalty. Recognizing and rewarding loyalty. Again, the tenant that I talked to you about, where I upgraded the dishwasher to the most up-to-date tech program, that was a way that I rewarded loyalty. I gave this particular tenant off Christmas every month. They didn't have to pay rent during the month of December. Why did I do that? I did it to reward the loyalty of this tenant staying in my unit. They paid their rent on time every month in full, and I gave them December off every year. Now, I'm not telling you to do all of these things or any one of these things. I'm telling you to consider the tenant experience from the tenant standpoint. And if you do that, look, the number one tip I have for you for building community is this: put yourself in the tenant's shoes and ask, if I lived here, what would make me more likely to connect with other residents in the community and want to stay? And if you can do that, you improve the area. I don't know how many times I've driven through different neighborhoods and had rundown properties or something going on a property next door that I called the local municipality and reported something, or reported something to the police when I'm in a specific area. Why do I do those things? because I care about the communities that my tenants and residents live in. And you should be doing the same. All right. So I was on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.com and I came across this article. And this was alarming to me, but does show me the overarching importance of thinking about things from the tenant's experience. If I was to show you an extreme opposite example of this tenant experience, it would be this. St. Louis Post-Dispatch reports several landlords accused of illegally renting out condemned properties in South St. Louis. This article goes on to give a whole list of one specific lady and a number of other people who own property in the South St. Louis area that have been renting these properties out illegally and collecting low rents from tenants, even though the property's been condemned by the city for a long period of time. This is not like a week and a half or 2 weeks that the tenant is still in the unit. They're knowingly allowing criminals and drug addicts to live in their property, pay low rents on condemned property. It's not a good strategy. It's not a long-term strategy. In fact, it's even gone as far as to say January 17th, when this article came out, they're done doing that strategy. The government's going to shut them down. Don't let that be you. Don't let yourself be in a position that you don't care about the community and the property enough in order to take care of the property. Here's another thing to pay attention to in St. Louis. Fox 2 News came out with this article, and they said this: continuing pipe problems from bitter cold across St. Louis. In St. Louis, when it gets cold, what ends up happening? If there's not proper heating inside the unit, or if some of these pipes are on an outside wall, or if the property wasn't properly winterized, the pipes bust. You've got to be responsive and take care of this cold immediately and take care of these things for residents so that they know that you care. You got to be able to troubleshoot and walk them through over the phone how to shut off the water. They're not going to be able to figure a lot of this stuff out themselves. They're going to call you in a panic. And so Fox 2 News is letting you know that if you own property in St. Louis, there's a good chance that pipes are busting, especially if you're not taking care of that property on a regular basis. You're not winterizing that property. You're not at that property on a regular basis. You haven't sent communications to your tenants letting them know what's going on. And then a lot of landlords try to wonder why they're not making any money in their small multifamily or multi-portfolio rental properties. They're like, where's it all going? Why is my maintenance cost so high? Because they're not taking care of the necessary things in a timely fashion. It builds up costs. And with that said, I do want to take a second and thank my first sponsor, or second sponsor of the show. Red Maples is the first. Web Insurance is the second sponsor of this show. Go to www.webinsurance.com and let Web Insurance be your guide. They can review your current coverages and make sure that you have the correct policies in place at the most affordable prices. And what Web Insurance clients love about them is that every year they will shop your rate so that they can proactively understand what the most affordable and appropriate coverages should be for you. Whether you're a contractor, a real estate investor, let Web Insurance be your guide. Go to www.webinsurance.com and get a quote. And maybe the next time your pipes rupture inside your unit, you can have asset protection in place that helps you through proper coverage with Web Insurance. All right. Thanks, Web, for sponsoring the show. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about on this show is this Wall Street Journal article that came out. It says that their bill is coming due on a record amount of commercial real estate debt. This was the Wall Street Journal. This article just came out. And what they were saying is more than $2.2 trillion in debt is maturing before 2028. And much of that will have to be refinanced at higher rates. What does that mean for you as the real estate investor? And why is this so important? Well, first thing it means for you as a real estate investor is your financing costs are going to end up going up. And if your financing costs ends up going up, then it's even that much more important that you retain tenants long-term, because we know from watching the show and being a part of the Red Maples community, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt what kills your finances in your rental units. Turnover. Remember, we always talk about there's two things to pay attention to from a management standpoint, and these two things will drive your return on your investment. The first thing is your retention rate. How long the tenant stays in your property. Can you get them to stay 3, 5, 10 years with you? The longer the tenant stays in the property, the higher the profitability, because the lower the amount of turnovers that we have. The second thing that drives profitability in all of your rental properties is your maintenance cost by square foot. And we talk about this all the time with our investors. We talk about this all the time with our staff. This is extremely important. We keep maintenance cost per square foot in line, and we keep our retention rates high. You do those two things, and guess what happens? Your rental portfolio succeeds. But you got to do a number of these different things. You got to think about it from the tenant's perspective. You got to make sure that you're building a sense of community. You got to have this aspect of your rental real estate that says, if I was living in this property, how would I want to be treated? Are you responsive on the work orders? Do you get to things in a timely fashion? Do you care about the things the residents care about? Do you care about their community? All of these things matter in enhancing the tenant experience. It ultimately impacts your bottom line. You got to do them effectively. You got to do them efficiently. You got to do them professionally. But you do these things right, and guess what ends up happening? You end up making more money in the long term. And with that said, you might be thinking, well, Nathan, how do I do all this? How do I get my phones answered during the day? How do I make sure that, I have somebody in place to be responsive to these tenants' work orders that can schedule and do all these things? Look, if you don't have the ability to hire a professional management service, maybe you've got the ability at least every month to be able to hire BBC Global Services. They're an outsourcing that helps people like you focus on your superpowers so that you can do the things that you do best. Simple and on your terms with no term limits or no minimums. Get a free consultation with no obligation. Visit our sponsor at www.bbcglobalservices.com. And maybe you can get some additional help or support or resources that will help you be able to be more responsive, more communicative, and work with your tenants even that much better. Zig Ziglar has this quote. He says, "You don't build a business, you build people, and then people build the business." I think that's true not only for employees, but I think this is true also for our customers, our tenants. It's not that we're trying to build a business. We're trying to build people and then let those people build the business. Put your focus in the right area. It's so critical that you guys think about enhancing your tenant experience. And even if you're one of our investors, you work with Red Maples and we manage property for you. Look, I can give you all the suggestions, ideas, and resources and tools and statistics and facts and support from news articles. I can send you video clips, all of these things to help you think about ways to enhance your tenant experience. But ultimately, when you own the property, the strategy comes from you. We're only a partner in the deal, trying to execute on the things that you want and trying to achieve the goals that you have as a real estate investor. I highly encourage you to understand that you don't build a business. You build people, and those people build the business for you. Those people are your tenants. Those people are the people that you got to enhance the experience so they stay with you longer term. What are those things that you can do? We talked about a number of them on the show. However, I want you to do your own research. Come up with your own solutions, your own ideas, your own concepts on why you want to improve the community. Think about that first. Now that you know why you want to improve the community, think about how you're going to improve the community and what specifically you want done. If you need an estimate or a bid on those types of things, work with your manager or your staff or yourself to go out and get those things and put those plans in action. Look, it's January, guys. You got a whole 12 months in front of you. Put the plan of practice into place now so that you can begin to execute that plan the rest of this year. And I want to make sure I take a second again before the end of the show and thank Red Maples, the sponsor that allows this show to even be possible. It's incredible that Red Maples has invested so many resources into helping you, the real estate investor, have a better understanding about how you're going to earn double-digit returns on your small multifamily real estate units. And if you'd like more information about how to do that, how am I actually going to get to double-digit returns on my small multifamily portfolio, go over to www.red-maples.com/assessment and take the assessment with us. Let us walk through the process with you and make some recommendations on things that you can do to improve your rental portfolio. And that, Renovation Nation, brings us to the end of another episode. I'm Nathan Bush, your guide on this journey of real estate business growth. Remember, just like plants need the right air and soil and care, our minds need the right environment to build a life of purpose, passion, and growth. Don't forget to get your citizenship to my Renovation Nation. You got to follow us, subscribe to my email list, and hit subscribe on the YouTube channel to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you love today's mind workout, share it with a friend who's also passionate about real estate business growth as you are. This way, they can join us every Friday at noon, guys. Just next time, make sure you join us for some insights, inspiration, and of course, a little bit of that nation-building spirit that drives us to create a community united by shared values, purpose, and a commitment to leaving a lasting legacy. Until then, keep building, keep growing, and let's lead more than 25,000 souls to a life of values-based investing. In our journey of Mind Renovation Nation, we often talk about personal growth, ethical leadership, and making impactful choices. Values-based investing is an extension of that philosophy. It's about being a steward not only of our finances, but of our values and vision for the future. Signing off from the heart of St. Louis, guys. Stay blessed, stay inspired, and remember, every day is a chance to renovate your nation. Till next time. See you guys.